Welcome, everyone, to the PickFu AI webinar, the third in our MCP series. My name is Adrienne. I'm the marketing lead at PickFu. I'm here with Justin, who is one of our co-founders, and Daniela Bolzmann, who is our wonderful agency partner. They're going to be doing a couple of live demos and walkthroughs of how to use the PickFu MCP to connect to your AI tools and analyze your survey results and turn them into beautiful custom reports you can use for either your internal team or your clients, whoever you're working with. So I will pass it over to Justin now to introduce himself, and we'll get going.
Great, thanks. So I'm Justin. I'm one of the co-founders of PickFu. That's my co-founder, John. He's not here today with us, but we're a fully remote company, globally distributed across many different countries. And it's basically, if you don't know about PickFu, it's basically a digital focus group that helps you get real human consumer insights from your target audience on all aspects of your product. So it could be as early as product concept and sourcing and branding and packaging, all the way down to your marketing creatives. So the things that might go on your listing. So main images, secondary images, A+ content, videos, ads, all of that kind of stuff. It comes in the form of very simple surveys that you create, and we're going to go out, we're going to find your target audience, we're going to incentivize them. We work with a lot of the largest enterprise grade consumer panels, so the same ones that a Procter & Gamble would use when they're doing longer form research. And so the quality is very high. We have our own layer of data quality and audience targeting on top of that. And so the other benefit is that it's very quick. So typically done within 15 to 30 minutes, maybe a few hours, depending on your targeting. And we can tap into millions of people around the world in 15 different countries in the native language that they speak. And the most important part about all of this is that you're not only going to get the votes of what options people like in this image here, you're going to get written explanations why. And those are the really key insights that are going to allow you to have actionable data to not only make a decision, but figure out what your next step might be. Maybe you're iterating on something. And so a lot of the stuff that we're showcasing is actually drawing from these qualitative explanations. If you have any questions, feel free to ask it in the chat. So today our guest is one of our wonderful agency partners, Daniela. We've been working together for many years at this point, and she's a phenomenal Power PickFu user, but I'll let her introduce herself and her agency.
Thanks for having me yet again. So we, like Justin said, are power users. We've been using the tool for almost 8 years now. So inside of our PickFu account, we have thousands of polls from tens of thousands of Amazon shoppers. And what I am so excited for in sharing today is this MCP. It's something that I have only dreamed about having access to this kind of data. I have been asking John and Justin and the team for something like this forever. And now because of AI, we're able to do these incredible things. And that's what we're going to share later today in this presentation. But my agency has been around 8 years. We're known for creating some of the top-notch content for Amazon brands in the industry. I've been an Amazon Accelerate featured speaker, along with a couple of our brands that were invited to speak at Amazon Accelerate. We work with mostly 7, 8, 9-figure brands. We work with about 150 brands every single year. And our goal is to help them double and triple their sales with organic content. And every single project that we work on for a brand includes workflows with PickFu. So we're going to share how that works today. But I think that's the piece that most people know from our previous talks that we've done. But the piece that's new and most people don't know that we're doing is this analysis piece with the MCP. And that's really exciting. We're going to share that today.
Awesome. So let me just back up a little bit because I'm not sure if everyone's familiar with MCPs, or maybe I haven't caught the first two webinars. But an MCP, what it stands for is Model Context Protocol. You don't need to know what that means. Basically, it allows you to have your AI assistant, which one you're using, maybe it's Claude or Notion or ChatGPT, and have it connect to other services that you're using. So maybe it's PickFu, maybe it's ClickUp or Asana or Notion, or whatever service that you're using. This allows your AI to chat with it to grab information or do things on your behalf. I'm just going to back up really quick on what the PickFu MCP can do. And so it can plan research for you. It's actually, AI is quite good at writing questions. So a lot of times people don't know. They're always concerned about if I'm writing a good question. AI is very good at writing questions for you. It can actually build and launch the surveys. So if you want to test dog owners, you can ask the MCP through your AI chat to build a survey that targets those dog owners. And it can also do things like organizing your work within PickFu. So we have this concept of projects and tags, and the PickFu MCP can help you organize the thousands of polls that you might have, put them into your projects. They could tag them, they could find them by tags and projects. And what we're going to focus on today is retrieving that content, because after you run all these polls, there's so much insight. Like I said, the qualitative aspect, all this written feedback is amazing. And it would be a shame if it was always just trapped in our platform. And so with the MCP, you can actually pull it down, analyze it, and generate even more insights from it. Okay, I am going to go. I'm going to, okay, just showing you all the different things that you can connect. Claude is the one that we like to use, and I'll just explain why a little bit. So a lot of people use ChatGPT. We use both ChatGPT and Claude, but what's great about Claude is that the connectors that it allows is they're a little bit more permissive with what the connectors can do. So instead of just a lot of connectors can just pull information in, which is great for analyzing things. But a lot of the connectors in Claude, and they also allow you to do custom connectors, which are people who are not in the marketplace like us. You could allow connectors to take action for you. And this is where AI gets really powerful, because instead of just reading a survey, reading the results of a survey, it could actually go publish a survey or create a survey, or create an Asana task, or send a Slack message. All these things our team is using. Definitely recommend trying out different AI tools, because there are different capabilities that they enable. I'm going to go over to the MCP, but let me tell you what I'm going to do first. So today, since we're focused on analyzing the results, we have this test project that I'll show you in a minute, where we've organized some polls from a hypothetical branding rebrand that we're doing. And so in our last webinar, in webinar 2, we started with a Notion creative brief of this rebrand, and I'll show that as well. And we actually pulled that content using the Notion MCP into Claude, and then had it analyze the creative brief, generate the necessary polls, and then run the polls from there. So, kind of the nice thing about having all these connectors pull into a single AI chat is you could have all the context of the work that you're doing. And that's where it becomes really powerful. It could pull in spreadsheets and pull in things from your database. It could read your Slack, and then have all that context of who you are, what your business is, what products you sell, what concerns you have, what keeps you up at, what are you yelling at your team about, all this kind of stuff, and then it can make the appropriate surveys for you. So I'm going to first show you, I'm just going to show you this as a recap. So this was the rebrand brief. So this is a creative brief that you may use internally, or maybe you work with a design agency, and sometimes you would create something like this around like what you're trying to do. This kind of content is great for AI to ingest, or branding guidelines, those kinds of things. This is a PickFu project. If you haven't tried it out yet, you can organize things into projects. And it's just a nice way to organize things, and we can generate an AI summary. I'm not sure why this one isn't here, but it'll generate an AI summary for you. And then you can more easily find and organize these things. So I'm going to go over to here and just show you really quick the PickFu connector. I'm going to show you first how to get there, just in case some of you are new to this. And so if you go to customize and connectors, you can add, there's a whole marketplace of connectors of tools that you might be using. So these are all like larger brands that are typically already approved by Claude.
And this is inside of Claude, just so that people know, because you
Yes.
switched from Notion back into Claude. So we're in Claude now.
This is Claude, which is an AI chat similar to ChatGPT. That's a little bit more focused on business users. And so you're going to see a lot more connectors and skills that are more for business folks. And so what you would do here is you would go to custom connector, you would add PickFu. And this applies to a lot of services that have custom connectors. This is the process that you would do. You would add it here. I already have it added, so I'm not going to do it again, but it'll then ask you to authorize. You click that button, it'll take you to PickFu to click authorize on our side. So you need to be signed into your PickFu account. And then you'll be able to come over here and use PickFu. What you're going to do is you're going to look, there's a little plus button here, and that accesses a lot of configurations. And then you're going to want to make sure that PickFu is selected here. So that's how you set up and use a connector. This is just a chat I did right before this of what can the PickFu MCP do. And whenever you do a new connector, it's always nice to just discover what you can even do with it. And so this is something you can do. Like you connect Notion. Hey, what can I do with the Notion connector? What can I do with the ClickUp connector? And it'll tell you all the different things that it can do. And you can see that there's a lot of things that we can do here, creating surveys, publishing surveys. So I will start a new chat. I will make sure PickFu is selected. Okay. And so, like I said, we're going to be using that Daybreak Coffee project. So what I'm going to have it do is pull the completed surveys from this Daybreak Coffee project, summarize the results, and just pull out the common insights and patterns across the test. So let me kick that off. So this is something that you probably used to do manually. You know, one of the things that we've always heard is that sometimes when you ask these surveys and it gives you, maybe you're asking for 50, 100, 200, maybe even 500 responses, it can become very tedious to read through all the responses, look for all the trends, look for the patterns. And I remember, Danielle, I remember talking to you years ago where you were saying that you were doing it manually, like in a spreadsheet where you would like code the different themes, right?
Yeah, we would. So I'm a fan of reading all the comments that people leave in the polls because I feel like I don't know, something, it registers in my brain easily.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when I'm reading the words, I'm like, oh, wow, there's a pattern. They keep asking if this is vegan. I'm like, okay, we need to do something about that. Whereas like if it shows up as an insight, I might gloss over it. And so what we used to do is we used to see like, okay, if that's mentioned 3 times, I would just do a search. How many times is it mentioned? Okay, it was mentioned 6 times. And that to me signals, okay, people keep asking about the word vegan or they keep using patterns in their language. Let's solve for that. You know, it would kind of give me a better read on what we should focus on.
Yeah. So I'm sure you still definitely recommend reading through all the responses because there's also just a certain way that your customers talk, and this can be incredibly useful as you're starting to write marketing copy or as you're trying to describe things on your listing or even on your packaging. You want to understand how they're describing your product, how they're conveying the benefits, and things like that. So definitely recommend still reading the responses. But what AI is great at is consolidating the patterns that it sees and generating kind of macro insights from it. So let's see what it's figured out. Let's see, what are we looking for here? So let me just, I kind of want to pull up all these different polls for you guys to see. Okay, so we were testing logos in one of them. We were testing taglines in another. Testing what matters to them. I feel like this is a underutilized use case. Part of the rebrand that we were doing in this hypothetical project was trying to pivot the customer base to more women coffee drinkers. And so trying to understand what's important to them was kind of key to this. And so what I like to tell our customers is that we do have the reputation for helping you test creative, but think of it truly as a digital focus group. If you were to have 15 women coffee drinkers in a room that you could ask questions to, you wouldn't just ask them creative, like, hey, do you like creative A or creative B? You would ask them deeper questions around, hey, what's important to you? Why do you like to go out and get coffee? How do you make your buying decisions based off price, or all these things? And there's a lot of psychological questions that you'd want to understand about your buyer. And then again, another logo test. So let me go back to Claude and see what the patterns are. Okay, so had some thoughts about the ritual positioning, sunrise better than botanical. Yeah, so we only did 15 for just to make it a little bit faster. You'd probably, for this kind of study, maybe want to do 50 responses.
The other thing you could do is if the brand had given you their demographics data from their website or Amazon, you could drop that into Claude and say, this is the ideal target demo based on the poll. How would you help us, analyze the information for that ideal customer profile. And then it would give you a whole different set of nuances, right?
Yep, totally. Yeah, that's a really nice way to combine the data that you're already getting from sales with your hypothetical target audience here.
The key thing for me on this part is that, for instance, if you were to just take your designs from your designer and drop them into Claude, and this is, okay, so we own a creative agency, and this is happening with our clients every single month, where they will grab our design, and it's fair. It's a fair thing to do. If I didn't know any better, I'd be doing the same thing too, right? But what a lot of brand builders or brand owners will do is they'll take the designs from the designer, just drop them into ChatGPT or Claude and say, how can I make these better? When you ask an AI tool, how can I make this better? It's always going to give you 20 ways that you could make it better, right? Then you're going to go back to your designer and you're going to say, here's 20 ways to make it better. And then guess what? You're going to pay for your designer to go and make those 20 things that you told them to go make. And then they're going to give you a new design. You're going to go back to ChatGPT and say, now how would you make this better? And it's going to give you 20 new things you could do to make it better. So you'll just end up in this spiral. What's missing there is this like source of truth, right? And that's the layer that PickFu is giving you, because they're tapping into actual data of your users, not just asking a blanket AI solution. We're tapping into your exact shopper and saying, based on our shopper that we polled, now how can I make my design better? And so because there's a source of truth, Claude is saying, actually, here's definitively how you can make your design better. Not with guesswork. This is how you can do it to like tap into this specific customer.
Awesome. Yep, totally agree. So let's see what this gave me. So I told us to focus in on just the logo tests and pull out what people liked about the winning options. And so this is a nice combination of both the trending and then also pulling some of the actual written responses. So you could see that people like the sunrise logo. And so this is the language that they're using to describe it. And so again, using the AI to kind of shortcut the process of having to manually peck through all of the written responses.
I love this part. This is like some of my favorite places where I find the gold for our content is here. The other day we were doing all of these different polls on color schemes for a brand. And we noticed every time we tested blue, they used a different set of language in the way they were describing the content. And they were using things like, this is more trustworthy, more clinical, more professional. And when we used green in our design, they were saying things like, this feels more natural, this feels more this, that, whatever. And so there is no right or wrong answer sometimes. If the polls are showing the same results, like in our case, they were actually neck and neck. So it wasn't like this one was outperforming this one in this scenario. But what's important to the brand in that scenario is, how do you want your brand to show up online? How do you want it to be perceived by your customer online? Are you wanting to be the trustworthy, clinical, science-based brand, or are you wanting to be the natural granola? That's a very like brand positioning type of activity, and we're still finding value in this data.
Yeah, that's a really important point because like you said, sometimes it doesn't come back very conclusive. It may come back 50-50, or maybe you want to go with the losing option because of how it's resonating with the direction that you're trying to take the brand. And so what we like to tell customers is that these are all just data points. You still have agency to make the decision that makes sense for your business and the direction that you want to take with it. So that's why the written responses are honestly more important than the quantitative, because you do need to read through to see what's resonating with people. And I think people really get fixated on just like who won, and kind of miss the detail that's in the written responses. So again, with the written responses, what's not only powerful about hearing how they're describing it, but how you should make adjustments to it. And so whenever you're doing any of these kinds of tests, you want to start looking for language that indicates, what adjustments can I make if I were to continue to iterate on it? And so having AI to analyze that is a great way to do it. So you can see that it's starting to borrow different aspects that worked well in the other ones, and then gave me some options to test if I wanted to iterate.
It's also telling you not just what to change, but it's telling you what not to change.
Yes.
It's telling you, like, this is working really well. Do not touch this.
Yeah, especially what's really resonating with people, like don't touch it. Yep. Okay. I will do one more thing, and I think I need to make sure my Notion connector is working. So the Notion page is here. So what I'm going to do is grab this link. I'm going to see if this works. The creative brief is here, and let's see if this works. I always like to show how you could push things back and forth within the different systems. So having it come circle because maybe you have some team members that are only working in Notion, and for them to then be able to see the conclusions and the polls that are running wherever they might be working. And this happens. You probably see this a lot, Daniela. Compacting.
Yes. The other thing that I see, just in case anybody runs into this, is sometimes it'll say to go grab the CSV from the poll. And I learned from Justin that you can just talk back to Claude and say, you can extract the CSV yourself. You do it, not me. And then it'll say, yeah, I can extract the CSV. I'll grab it for you. Great, thank you. And then you could say, sometimes the images don't show up in what I'm trying to render. And it'll say, can you go grab me the images from the PickFu poll? And I said, you can extract, the word is extract. You can extract the images from the poll. You do it. And then it goes, oh yeah, I can do it.
That's a good AI tip in general, right? Whenever AI tells you to do something, you just push back.
Yeah.
And you just say, I think you can do it. Why don't you try?
Yeah.
That's what I'm paying you for. Okay, so it did find the Notion integration. It's updating the page. You can always see what it's doing here if you want to see kind of the gobbledygook that it's sending. If you're curious, like you can go back up here to some of the PickFu calls and see what it's doing under the hood.
So you already had your creative brief inside of Notion.
Yeah.
You grabbed the link to that page. You dropped it in here. You said, this is my creative brief. Can you add the summary of these results to my brief?
Yeah.
Okay. So it's basically just revising your brief.
Correct.
With new instructions for the designer or just a section that has the results?
I guess we'll see. So it was to the discretion of the AI. I could have been more specific, but it created a new section down here. Let's see if we can find it.
Cool.
Yeah. So basically it's a TLDR of all the surveys that were run. And yeah, this is I like using this pattern in general of using something like Notion, something outside of the chat as a persistent like storage of things you're working on. So, as I'm doing research, I'll push some findings into Notion. And then when I come back and do another chat session, I can start from a new chat session to say like, hey, let's pick up where we started from by looking at what I already did, do more research, keep appending it or revising it. And so your docs can continue to evolve and live in a single place, even though you may be spanning, weeks of different chats, right? So, really powerful pattern that I think people just have to get used to. Of things don't just have to live in the chat.
Yeah, that's smart.
You don't want to just like be stuck in that one chat, and this way other people can work on it, right?
That's very smart.
All right,
love that.
So
I'm gonna steal that one.
Yeah, I'm going to go back to the slides over here. And pass it over to Daniela.
Awesome. So to walk you guys through what I was working on with Adrian and Justin right before we hopped on this call, I dropped in a few of my polls into Claude just to show you guys how easy it is, just from scratch, just like literally just popped them in there. So we'll go over that. A little bit of background on main images, because this is how we have primarily used PickFu forever. This was our baseline. We always, like if you have never run a split test and you're not sure how to get started with PickFu, and especially if you're an e-commerce seller or an Amazon seller, testing your main images is one of the highest leverage things you can do with minimal effort. We've seen brands increase their sales up to almost 600% by focusing on the main image click-through rate, right? That's getting more people into your listing with a more attractive image. And the biggest pushback I get on these types of main images that you see here is that people will say, is that compliant? Is that within terms of service? Is Amazon going to shut down my account because I'm getting too creative with my main image? We have worked on thousands of products, and I can tell you we have never had one client get their account shut down for being more creative on their main images. This is the place where you should be pushing the limits. If you're nervous about your main image or you're a bestseller and you don't want to test too much because you're afraid you're going to break something, one safe way to upload a main image concept that has proven worthy in something like PickFu is to use Manager Experiments to upload your design, and then you will have a real person from Amazon reviewing your main image and telling you if it's accepted or rejected before they start your test. That's a little hack of how to like get it approved without it going live, right? So it'll run in a Manager Experiment, and then if it wins, it'll just go live naturally. So that's kind of the backdoor method of getting that type of an image approved or rejected without putting it live and seeing it affect your page. Typically what we're doing in this process is we are ideating, and there is no bad ideation. There is no bad idea. We want as many ideas as possible in the room. If you have a team of creatives, or maybe you're not creative, you can talk to Claude and come up with ideas. You can use different tools like Pixie or AMZ One Step to generate lots of main image ideas. You can even use PickFu within Claude to generate main image ideas. There's lots of tools that are out there, even like ChatGPT, to help you create main image concepts and ideation, really. So you want like 20 different examples, 50 different examples. And once you see them all laid out on the screen, very similar to this kind of a pattern, you would kind of with your eye be able to look at it and say, actually, these 2, 3, or 4 are really strong options. Why don't we put those into a PickFu poll and see how they perform against each other, right? And from there, you would see, okay, this one is actually performing really well. Sometimes you'll have 2 that are performing really well. Sometimes you have more than 2 that are performing really well, and that's great. You're going to have backups that you can test later, because what's going to happen is once you find something that's winning and you put it on Amazon, your competitors are going to see and they're going to start copying you. So you have your backup ones ready to go. So once we have tested our main images to figure out which ones we think are going to be the winners, we will then test them against some of our competitors' main images to see how they perform against those. Now, this part of the testing, we do 2 different tests. The first test is going to have our original main image against 2 competitors, and that's whatever's on Amazon right now. Yes, thank you. So if you look at poll number 1 here on the left, you'll see something like maybe the first image on the left is maybe the brand's original image. And you can see in that poll, they got like 0 votes against some of the competitors, right? Actually, is this, which one are we testing in this one? IQ Bar or?
It's Bobo's.
Bobo's. Okay.
Bobo's got 1 vote, yeah.
Cool. So Bobo's got 1 vote. So the goal here is, how do we get more than 1 vote? With some amazing main images, that should be very easy. Right now, Bobo's is not performing very well against Aloha or IQ Bar or this one on the right. So this becomes our baseline. Then what we're going to do is we are going to come up with some concepts for Bobo's and see which ones are the winning ones. We're going to pick the winning variant. Let's say it's this one in option B. And then we're going to move that into this same poll that we did over here, but we're going to swap out our original image for this new winning variant. And now you can see what's the percentage there? 57? 53?
Yeah, 53%.
53% of the votes now went to this one. So it did win in this scenario, but it doesn't actually even have to win. It's really great when it does win, because then you can go into testing on Amazon with complete confidence. But this is telling us that this image right here is performing way better than our original image over here. So we can almost guarantee with certainty that it will perform on Amazon. So I would have enough confidence in this one to go ahead and upload it straight away to Amazon, because this one is doing us no favors. Then you would want to just monitor your listing, make sure that you're tracking your click-through rate, and you can almost guarantee that your click-through rate will go up. So that's the process of testing. Now, that's the process of testing main images. If you can do that once and figure that out, you will have confidence to start testing your product images, to start testing your A+ content, to start testing your storefront. There's no limits when it comes to testing. More data points are going to help you evolve and really push the limits of your creative to where it needs to be. Because just with some slight tweaks that you can make with this data, you can improve drastically. We're seeing brands go from, on average, anywhere from 20 to 2,500% increase in sales by elevating their creative and using split testing in the process. Those are the only 2 factors that we play with at Mindful Goods. And this is one of the biggest ones. Like, you have to be pulling in this data. So let's see the next slide. this is one of our clients actually that saw these results, right? They saw a lift on Amazon of 719% increase in their sales. And it was following that exact process that we just talked about across their main images, their copy, their product images, and their A+ content. And they didn't even have premium A+ content because they're a vendor central seller. And this is a brand that's a legacy seller. They've been selling forever on Amazon and they had plateaued. And they saw an immediate jump once they refreshed their content. So this was already like an 8 or 9 figure seller that saw this kind of results, which is just insane. And this is not like the only client. This is what we see with 80% of our clients just by following this process. So let's look. Oh, here's the other point that I didn't mention. The other pushback that I get from people when we're talking about split testing is, this is actually the number one thing people say when I tell them to use PickFu. They go, why would I use PickFu when it's not actual Amazon data? Like, why wouldn't I just use Manage Your Experiments? Well, Manage Your Experiments is a free split testing tool on Amazon. It's a great tool, but it's a very long tool to run even one test. It can take anywhere from 4 to 10 weeks for one test. Most brands don't even have time for that. They have to report things to their boss. They don't have time to be waiting around for one test for 4 to 10 or 12 weeks. So what we do is we're typically pre-testing in PickFu to get directional data. We're pulling in as much data while we're designing so that we're not designing in a silo and then just uploading to Amazon. If your designer is giving you something and you're uploading it straight to Amazon, that is probably the most risky thing you could be doing right now. You don't know if it's going to perform. You just say, oh, I think it looks nice, and you throw it up there. You could be trashing your listing. So the better way is to pre-test it on something like PickFu, understand what's working, what's not working, make any final adjustments. And once you feel confident in it like this, then you would upload it to Manage Your Experiments or just upload it live and track the data manually. And tracking the data manually is something that some brands have to do when they don't have access to Manage Your Experiments. And that's fine too. You're not going to break anything by tracking it manually. That's totally fine. What's the next slide? Okay, so this is the fun thing that I'm excited to share in this talk today. There's 2 things that I'm going to share. And one is that we have, like I mentioned, we have thousands of polls in our account. I have always wanted to be able to pull all of the data for various categories that we've worked in, because we've worked with probably more CPG food brands than any creative agency out there. And we've worked probably with more supplement brands than any creative agency out there in terms of helping them on Amazon. So I thought it would be great to be able to pull the insights that we're seeing and then correlate those insights to what they're seeing on Amazon as well. Because that's always been the tricky part, right? Like brands, I've always said, I don't know if testing on PickFu is actually going to translate to results. Well, that last slide, we did an analysis that shows that 75% of our clients that saw performance on PickFu, 75% of them that had winning polls ended up increasing their sales on Amazon. So that's the correlation that we saw from pre-testing on PickFu to actual results on Amazon. So the question of like, why would I do this? I'm not really sure if it's even a worthy step or a valuable step. It's a proven step. This to me is like all you need to know. The next thing that I'm going to share, besides like how we took all of that data, which we took a ton of data for the supplements category and we published it, and we're going to show you that. And then we're also going to show you just really simply how to grab multiple polls, analyze them all, and then put them into a visual landing page so that you can really clearly understand the data. And you don't have to do it this way, but what we were doing is kind of like reading the text AI summary from within PickFu, which is very valuable. We would then analyze it ourselves, record a Loom video, share it with clients. But I find that this step is increasingly valuable, not just for us, but for our clients and for our design team to stay on the same page. And so that's what I'm going to share today. It gives us a way that we can all visually see something, because this is the thing to remember, like not everybody can just read a text document and be on the same page with you. 90% of what we take in as humans is visual. And so for me, and I'm a very, very, very visual person, most times when people are talking to me, I'm like trying to like visually see what they're saying. like I'm trying to paint a picture in my mind of what they're saying so that I can understand what they're saying. It's just how my brain works. So if you can just show me what you're saying, I'm like, oh, cool. Yeah, I would just change this, this, and that. But if you're talking to me and asking me what I should change in the design or what we should do to fix this, I 9 times out of 10 have no clue what you're talking about. So this will, if you're like me, then this step is going to save you. Let me go ahead and share my screen here. Let's see, share. All right. Can you see, let's pull up Claude. Can you see Claude?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So this is what I dropped in, and I didn't even give it instructions, okay? The reason why, and I don't know if this is true for everyone, but once I connected the connector, Justin, maybe you can verify this, it automatically detects that this is a PickFu poll. And then it automatically realizes, oh, I should analyze this, right? I didn't actually even know that before. So I was telling it, analyze this poll and give me a high level summary. Analyze this poll and do this. Analyze this poll and do that. And I would have it do various things. Now we've gotten to the point where we've built a custom skill, which we didn't talk about in this talk, but in addition to adding connectors, you can create your own custom skill. So if you know that every time you run a PickFu poll, you want to do this and that with it, you can then tell Claude, hey, every time I drop a PickFu poll, I want you to do steps 1, 2, and 3. Let's build this into a skill, and it'll build it for you, and you just upload it to your skills, which lives here in where the connectors are. So we've already built a skill that says every single time we drop in a PickFu poll, this is what I want you to do. Inside of that skill, all I had to do was drop these 3, or actually inside of the chat, all I had to do is just drop 3 polls, and it says, great, I'm going to start analyzing these. It knows its primary function is to spit out what's called an artifact. An artifact is basically Claude language for an HTML landing page. I want it built a very particular way. I want it to tell me what was learned in the poll at a high level. I want it to show me visually the examples that were in the poll with the learnings from that poll, and to walk me through it in a visual landing page style type of way. So I've given it all that instruction in the skill. The other key thing is that I don't want 50 recommendations for how to make this better. I want to take the top insights, and I want only the top 3 high impact levers that are going to make a difference in this design, because I need my design team to stay very focused on moving the needle forward, not just on fixing minutia, right? There's always going to be like random little things that could be better, little typos, little, like that's a different type of thing that can happen in your QA. But this part of iteration is just figuring out the high impact moves, in my opinion. So once it's done that, it's going to ask me for a little bit of context. Like here it said, like, which one is the brand? Usually ask me which one is your client, which one is going to move, which design is going to move forward. I'm guessing it's going to be this one, the winner, right? And in this case, it did guess correctly. And then it moves on with its task once I verified it. And here is the output, an artifact, which again is a landing page. If we click here and open this, it's already using our design style that we've also fed into Claude as a design skill, right? Or as a skill, and told it, this is how we want you to design our landing pages every single time. So can you see my landing page right now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay,
we
cool.
also see the Zoom window in the corner.
Okay, how do I move that? Let's see. Should I fix that?
I'm not sure. I'm afraid to tell you to click the X in case that makes you leave the Zoom.
Let me go back here. Can I make it smaller? How about that? Can you see me still? Okay, cool.
Good.
We figured it out. Okay, so I'm going to scroll through this really quick. There's lots of other examples here, but what this did is it basically analyzed all of the polls together. And this is something that was never possible before. We'd have to do this manually or like one by one. And now what we're able to do is tell Claude, hey, I ran these 3 polls. I need to understand what's going on between all of them, right? So it's like, it's explaining, okay, you ran 3 head-to-head polls. This is what happened with each of the polls. And of 2 of the designs, this is what happened. And here's how we suggest moving forward. Here's the high-level data that it pulled out from these polls. Here's how the actual demographic breakdown between all of the polls. And it would usually highlight anything that really stood out in terms of an outlier that we should pay attention to. It's analyzing what people are saying in the polls. This is, again, I mentioned this before, but it's one of my favorite pieces to look at. That's why we make sure it's built in here, because this is the language that we need to be tuning into. And Claude is able to detect what is language that is maybe very sensitive language, very negative language, or maybe overly positive language, or any patterns in the language. So it'll usually serve all of this up in a meaningful way to us so that we can just read it at a glance, which I love. And then here's where I mentioned, I just want to understand what were the high level insights and recommendations. So this is what happened in polls 1 to 2. This is what happened in the other one. And this is the winner across the board with all of these high level insights. Here are the top levers to pull in terms of the design. So it says you need to resolve this. And then I would recommend pulling the comparison framing higher in the page, and then perhaps consider this type of a test. So some of these will be fixes that you need to make to your design for iteration. And some of them will be, hey, you should test this because this actually could help you. So this kind of action, I love. I don't want to be focused on 20 different minutia. We need to know what are the key things that are going to really move the needle in this design. Again, here's the points that are working that we should not be touching. And then here's what we're going to test next. So this is a really simple format that allows us to show the client, our team, our designers, everybody, what's going on with this data so that everybody stays on the same page. And at a high level, everybody knows what we have to do next. To show you some other examples, or there's actually one more thing I wanted to show inside of here. Can you see my Claude chat? Okay. So after it gave me this, I then said, I also just want like a high level summary of the polls. Can you drop it in here so that I can just take a look really quick? So this is the fun thing, is that now we have all of this data from these 3 polls in here. I can also click here to upload files. So like we were saying with Justin earlier, if I have maybe an intake form from my client, if I have their Amazon PPC reports, if I have their Amazon search query performance report, if I have their demographics data downloaded from their brand insights page in Amazon, if I have any sort of polls that maybe they have run with their community on their Shopify website, if I have reviews from their Shopify website, all of this, I can drop all of this into this exact chat, and I can say, cross-reference this against these other data points that I'm giving you so we can make this analysis stronger. And it's going to completely revise its recommendations based off of who we're targeting, the kind of language that they use, and the specifics for that brand, which I love. So here I just said, kind of give me like a high-level summary. And this is where I would tend to go deeper, right? So I would say, you know, I would maybe upload our Figma board, because you can basically do an export of your Figma board in the form of an image, and you could upload it here and say, look, this is our draft that we used in this poll. This is our content board for Figma. This is all the data points that we pulled across the brand. Based on these 3 polls, how would you recommend iterating on this design? And it'll give us some recommendations of how we can do that. And it'll actually revise every single thing in our Figma board to tell us exactly what we should change and where based on this data. To show you some more examples, let's look at some fun ones. And to show you how to do this, with that in Claude, where it gave me the artifact, all I had to do was click and it opened up into this screen here in Chrome. The only problem with this is that if you want to share this with your team, I'm not able to share this URL because it's not hosted anywhere. So it's basically hosted on my computer right now, and that's why we can all see it. In order to share this with my team, I would have to basically download this HTML file, and I think I might even have to zip it for them. I'm not sure, but I'd have to send it to them. They would have to download it and then click it and open it, right? Which is a lot of steps for people that may not know that that's what they have to do. So what I like to do is I like to download that HTML file and drop it into a tool called Lovable. Now, Justin just told me before this call that PickFu also integrates directly with Lovable. So you could do all of the things that I just showed you. Hypothetically, I think you can do everything inside of Lovable. Is that true, Justin?
Yeah, I think so, but it'll depend on if you want to have maybe the context of your Claude chats, or if you feel that Claude is a better analyzer. So
Okay.
There's a couple different ways. You could either do it directly, or you could have Claude create like a brief or some kind of that you bring over to Lovable.
Okay, so I'm going to show everybody how to do this right now so that they aren't intimidated by this. Let's go grab that artifact. So here's the artifact. I'm going to click on it. It gives you a preview here as well. All I have to do is download as HTML, and I'm going to, let's replace that. I am going to come over here and I'm going to upload. And what you noticed from that example actually is in this example, it didn't show the images from the PickFu poll. I could tell it to make sure to include the images from the PickFu poll, and it will redesign that landing page and include it in there. Just to save us time, I'm not going to do that. I will show you some examples where I did do that. But to upload your HTML file, all you have to do is grab that file and just tell it to rebuild this page as is. And it'll go ahead and create a landing page just like that HTML is. And I'll show you that in a minute. In the meantime, I'll show you one that I already did. So this is one where I dropped in the HTML file, and it generated this page here, where again, it's giving me a high level overview of what happened with this poll. You can see that the images are in here, and it's saying there's 5 themes that it picked up on. These are the 5 themes that were picked up on in these polls that people are loving. They're mentioning over and over again. These are the demographics. It's where it matters the most, and specific breakdowns of different segments within the polls that we can either sharpen or that we can make sure that we're like it's already hit home on, let's say, the female audience here, right? So now it's saying we need to focus on improving this audience here, because this is a product that might attract all these different age groups. There's areas where we could be stronger, and it's going to give me recommendations of how to do that. Again, pulling out the things that were actually said that matter. I have it doing just a cross analysis of what are the high level things that were in this design versus our competitors. And these are the 3 things that are going to have the highest impact in terms of editing this content, improving this content. Here's the things not to touch. And then here's the next thing to test, right? So this is, for me, the format that we're using to help communicate all of these insights to everyone, keep everyone on the same page. Same thing with this one here. It's pulling out our high level learnings. It's showing the demographic breakdown and what's performing where and how we can make it stronger in different areas, any key insights we need to pay attention to. And all of this can be done across multiple polls or just with a single poll. It just depends on how you want to analyze your data. For me, more data points is better. If we have run multiple polls, I'll usually feed them into Claude anyways, because it's going to see things that I might not, right? Another example here, same format, pulling out the high level insights, breaking down the demographics for us in a visual way, showing us what people are saying, especially any patterns, calling out the things that are working in various designs. And here's the other thing that's interesting, right? So like in this example, I would have expected Mary Roos to win as a first place design, because everybody knows Mary Roos and they're investing millions of dollars in their advertising and their creator marketing right now. So I put this in thinking they're just going to like completely blow us out of the water. And it was my surprise that our design actually won over here. And that was not something to be expected. Like I thought everybody knows Mary Roos, it's a household name, and they're going to blow us out of the water. For me, that doesn't matter, because the whole point of what we're doing is I want to learn from the best. And if Mary Roos is the best and they get all the votes, that's fine. I want to know why. I want to know what it is that people are gravitating towards besides just the brand name, right? They're going to mention the brand name 100 times, but what else? What do they like about the design? What is making their design so strong? What are the learnings we can take to make our design better? So that's the whole point of what Justin and I were saying earlier of your design doesn't have to win in many cases. It's the learning that you're getting in the process. To show you one more example where we did a multi poll, and this is actually the same one here that we just did a minute ago. This is how I did it previously. So we showed 2 different polls instead of 3 actually on this one. It identified the patterns, and then you can see how it broke down the 2 different tests here. On one of the polls, we ran these 2 together, and then on the other poll, we ran the winning variant against this one here on the right. And it breaks all of that down for us and explains to us like why each one won and or why certain elements didn't win. And it makes everything crystal clear for us and tells us exactly what we need to be doing next. So if there's any questions on this, drop it in the chat and we'll get to it at the end. I'm really excited to like go deeper on this with anybody because for me, this has like completely been a game changer in our creative agency. It's been a game changer for our clients. It's been a game changer for our team. For me, this is something we're doing with every single project, and we're doing it multiple times. We're doing it when we're testing main images, when we're testing product images, when we're testing A+ content. This is such a fantastic way to be analyzing your data and having Claude help you understand how to make it perform better. One more thing. Oh, this one. I mentioned earlier another fun thing that we did. We analyzed over, I think it was 99 of our PickFu polls and then another 100 Amazon experiments that we did with those same brands to be able to track what are the trending things that are helping the supplement brands that we worked with perform, and then what was it between the content, the PickFu testing, and then the Amazon testing that worked so well, right? And so we were able to pull all of this data into a report that conclusively tells us specifically, these are the things that are working here with main images, right? Things like this. So it's breaking down what we should be doing in every single one of these main images, all of these key insights of all of these tips and tricks that you can use on your main images. And then we broke down exactly what's happening with product images and exactly how we can improve our product images with these insane insights. And then we did it again for the A+ content. We were asking it, what are the things that are working across our supplement brands with our A+ content? And so all of this data is now inside of this report. Everyone who's on this today can get access to this. And we will drop you the link in the chat if anybody wants it. But even if you don't sell a supplement, there is so many learnings in here. And this is all at the bottom. This is all of the analytical data that shows you how their performance panned out on Amazon, just to back all of this up in case anybody doesn't believe the results. It's all here. This is like all of the Amazon data published across all of these supplement brands. I think it was like 38 different supplement brands. So we'll drop that link in, but that's just another creative thing that you can do in terms of understanding. If you're in this chat and you work with, like, let's say you have an agency like me and work with lots of clients, or if you have lots of polls that you've run across multiple brands, or let's say you have a big catalog with lots of different products, you could cross-reference all of your polls now. The sky is the limit with analyzing all of this stuff. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it on that part.
Yeah, that was awesome, Daniela. I think what's really powerful now is that, we're always going to have our own poll results page, but we're never going to be able to present in a way that maybe you want to combine different polls, or you want to present it in a certain way to your clients, or maybe there's just a certain angle that you like to analyze it. And so what's really powerful with the combination of AI and these things like the MCP connector is that you can, let's say, build a skill like you have and say, this is the way our company always analyzes polls. Maybe we always look for certain trends, and we like to visualize them in a certain way. And so I know Dan was asking about how to build some of these yourself, and I don't know if you're sharing your skill, but this is something that you would iterate with. Let's say if you're using Claude, and you would iterate with it to do one version of it, and then once you're done with it, ask it to build the skill itself, to say like, hey, I want to do this repeatedly. So build a skill to capture like the style and like the way that we've done this, so that I can do this again, and it can actually build that skill for you so that you can repeat.
That's a really good question, Dan, because I also didn't know how to do that myself either. And it's exactly what Justin said. I went through the whole process, just like what I showed you. And I chatted back and forth with it. And I said, I don't need you to show me this. I like this only. And when you show me results, can you show it to me more like this? And I got it to a place where I was like, we're in the chat. It gave me a result that I loved. And I was like, great, this is it. This is what we need every single time. And I said, I love this. Can you now make this into a Claude skill? And it was like, yes, I can. Here you go. And then I was like, now what do I do with this? And it said, go here in your account and upload it here. And then I did, and it worked. And then from that moment on, it would just automatically work. Anytime I dropped in a PickFu poll, it said, I'm using your skill right now.
Yeah. Awesome. There's a question, do you use AI to create main images and A+, and if so, which tool?
Yeah, we use Pixie for our ideation. It's PIXII, and I think you can use the code MindfulVIP to get a discount. Great tool for ideating. What we have that's a little bit different inside of Pixie, because we're an agency client, we have pulled all of our top performing main images across our portfolio of clients. So, I mean, we've been doing this 8 years. We've worked with over 850 brands. As you can imagine, we've kind of cracked the nut on like what works for most categories. So we've taken those and we've kind of made our own custom solution inside of Pixie that's like allows us to just quickly drop in a client's image and generate ideas for us. So it'll come up with 20 different ideas. We take those ideas and say, okay, of these, we think actually like 2 or 3 of these are pretty strong. They're never going to be 100% out the gate. It's actually very surprising to use a tool and actually see something that's ready to publish. It almost never happens. So what we're looking at is like, okay, we just need the concept, right? Like we need to know which concepts would be cool to test. And then once we have the concept, like we know that image is kind of like 90% of the way there. We're like, okay, if we take this thing that we like over here and put it on this one, and maybe this thing over here that we like and put it on this one, we're kind of almost there, right? So we might do that quickly, mock it up or fix it with AI, or we might fix it with Canva, whatever, your tool of choice. And we get it to a place where we're kind of like, it's still not pixel perfect, but it's good enough to throw into PickFu. We test it in PickFu as fast as we can. The whole name of the game at this stage is like, get the images fast and put them into a poll so you can understand what's working. Then we analyze that data and we say, okay, now we can work with a designer and get these to the right place, right? Because now we know what's working. Now we know, okay, this is this one over here. This is the one we need to focus on. Let's rebuild this, make it look amazing, do it in Photoshop, and it's pixel perfect, ready to go for Amazon. That's kind of how our process works.
Awesome.
Real quick, I know we're over time, but we had one more question in the Q&A. What do you suggest testing when your brand is the category leader?
When your brand is the category leader, it's about staying the leader. So we're working with many category leaders right now, one specifically that is probably in most people's homes. And I can tell you their ethos at their company is that we have to be telling the industry what they need to be doing. And so they came to me and I looked at their content and I said, wow, you guys, your content is not bad. And you guys are the brand that everybody wants to be. What is it that you want us to do with this? You know, like you guys are already doing a fantastic job. Like, why did you hire us? And they basically said, in order for us to stay the leader, we need to keep working with people like you. We have to keep pushing the boundaries. And so we are helping them figure out what's the next level of what everyone else in the industry is going to want to look like. Right. And so that I would be crazy to design that in a vacuum or without data. So like I have to be using a tool like PickFu to say, okay, this is what's going on in the industry right now. These are the top competitors. We're the best, but we want to test these other concepts. Which one would most likely perform best? Right. And that is such a scary thing to do when you're already the leader, but for them, they just have always done it. That's just how they operate. They have to be constantly pushing. So that's something that in order to remove the risk, you need to be using a tool like this to be able to test off to the side, to be able to show multiple team members exactly what's working and why. And that way you have confidence into testing in a safe environment, like manage your experiments rather than just going live to Amazon. Yeah. Really good question though, because that is a tricky thing. But here's the other thing. We worked with a brand, and I shared this example with Justin the other day at a Helium 10 event. We worked with a brand where multiple agencies were competing to make a better main image, right? And this was like a new launch for a brand. And it was all of us top creative agencies competing against each other. And we did our process. We came up with our like 20, in this case, maybe 40 main images. We narrowed it down. We tested a bunch. And then we realized like, I had tested 4 and I was like, you know what? There's this other one that it looks good too. Let me just throw that in there anyways. I almost did not include it in the poll. And that one got 50% of the votes. So even though you think you're the best seller, you're the top dog in the industry, like you're like you shouldn't be touching what you're doing, somebody else is going to start copying you already. you gotta zag when everybody's zigging. You gotta zig when everybody's zagging. Like, you cannot stay stagnant. And this is a way for you to see, like, okay, how do I make my main image even better? Like, it's challenging. We have a bestseller right now where we've generated like 20 different concepts. None of them is beating his original image right now. None of them. And we're just like, how do we beat this main image? It is possible. I'm sure of it. It is possible. We just haven't cracked the nut yet. And so, like, the only way I'm going to find something that is better is if we keep iterating, keep ideating, doing something totally different, or tweaking things that he already has on his to see, like, what happens if we do this bigger or do this smaller. There is a way to beat the image. I am, like, confident. And that's the challenge. Like, if you're already at that place, then you're looking for micro gains. Great question.
Cool.
Yeah, good questions, everyone. Thank you. I know we're 5 minutes over time. Thanks for being patient. This was amazing. Thank you so much, Daniela, for joining. Those were awesome tips that you had.
Thank you for having me.
We're going to be hosting more webinars like this coming up soon. So keep an eye on our Luma page, and we'll also send you email invites with all the new events we have coming up. I'm sure we'll be back with Daniela at some point. So thanks, everyone, for joining.